I really liked it. I really liked Friday Night Lights. I really, really liked it. Um, so where to start? Uh, it's kind of simple. That might be one of the most beautiful things about the show is its simplicity. It's a show about small town America. It makes a lot of statements about the American culture, the American psychology, about Americana writ large. Through this small town called Dillon, we talk about rivalry, racism, masculinity, femininity. There's quite a lot of things to grapple with here. It talks about a lot of complex issues in ways that are kind of smart. There's a lot of rhyming imagery throughout the season. It stays true to its thematics laid down in the pilot of I was born in a devil town. Didn't know it was a devil town. There's a lot of great moments here. And it really comes down to like what separates Friday Night Lights from something like One Tree Hill, which is probably really good to compare to Friday Night Lights. Um, for the record, just to irritate everyone who might be a Friday Night Light person, uh I think One Tree Hill is just very, very cool, and I don't think that Friday Night Lights can compete with One Tree Hill. And it's for this reason. It's for its greatest strength, but what I also think that might be Friday Night Lights' largest weakness, and that's the composition. It separates it most from your more traditional teen dramas is the composition. And I know the creators of the show, like people like Peter Berg and Jason Katims, don't really call this show a teen drama. They at least find it strange and bizarre when people do. They find it limiting, which I just find kind of insulting to people who actually love the art form that is teen drama, like myself. And it's like, how did you not think this was a teen drama? This show hits every single beat precisely on cue. It doesn't do anything subversive, not truly. It truly is a teen drama. And I would almost accuse it of a paint by numbers teen drama, like that typical, if it wasn't for the composition. The composition is this documentary, nearly handheld approach, kind of shaky. What it brings to the table is immediacy. The show feels urgent and it feels intense and it feels more authentic. And that right there, I think, is the largest issue that I would personally have with something like Friday Night Lights. It is striving for authenticity while remaining extremely loyal to all of the tropes of teen drama, no matter how much the writers and the showrunner might like to posit that they aren't. They are the most faithful mistress to every teen drama fucking trope. This show loves its teen drama tropes. It's just that it's filmed, it's captured. The composition of the show makes it feel different. It makes it feel urgent. It makes it seem new and intense. But in reality, it's more typical than One Tree Hill. In reality, this show is more conventional, certainly, than Gossip Girl or Gilmore Girls or Dawson's Creek. It's one of the most typical, narratively typical teen dramas I've ever watched. But the composition, which I think is so brilliant, makes it seem so new and raw and urgent and immediate. But that also is like because they're striving for authenticity, and I don't believe in authenticity in film. Just ask Rossellini and the neo-realists. I don't believe in authenticity in narrative media. Not really. I think that cinematic and real. I think that those are antonyms. I think that real life is antithetical to cinematic to cinema. I think that these are antithetical ideas. And when you try to, or antithetical existences, experiences, not simply ideas, I don't think you can strive for what is cinematic in your real life without failing to accomplish that, and vice versa. I don't think you can strive for realism within cinema without seeming disingenuous, without failing when things really try to strive for this authenticity, and it's fairly evident by the nearly documentary style visual approach, the visual grammar that the show uses as its aesthetic signature. It's fairly obvious that what they're striving for is authenticity, is something a bit more real. And to me, striving for authenticity through cinema kind of just exposes just how artificial what you're doing actually is. And I think that there's a lot more power in a One Tree Hill that would just fully embrace the cinematic rather than Friday Night Lights that uses the tools of cinema to try to create authenticity. I just don't see it, and I think it exposes the artificiality and it exposes a lot of the teen tropes that I'm talking about. How they fall directly into every single teen trope, and they don't really do anything different or interesting with them. I find the tropes interesting on their own, and I like seeing these kinds of love triangles and bullying and you know coming of age. I like seeing all of that explored. I like the tropes. Friday Night Lights doesn't really do anything different with the tropes, but it feels like it's different because of the composition, because of the visual storytelling mechanics, which is cool. I just also think that that composition is making you try to think of authenticity, making you try to believe that the show is a bit more real. And when that stuff happens to things that I'm watching, I'm just reminded by how fake everything is. And in One Tree Hill, I'm not concerned with the fakery because it's a show that embraces its own artifice. So One Tree Hill is a lot better than Friday Night Lights. So is this show honestly can't compete philosophically or cinematically with the likes of Gossip Girl and One Tree Hill, Dawson's Creek, Gilmore Girls, just Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It cannot compete. We got a lot of cool characters here that you really just grow so fond of. I'm so fond of so many of these characters. There's really not a weak link. There's not a character that I hate to be around. I even like being around Buddy Garrity. All right, I think he's a treasure trove. He's If you want to talk about authentic, I feel like Buddy Garrity actually did walk out of Dillon, Texas. All right, I think my favorite character probably like Jason Street and Lila Garrity. I didn't expect to warm up to Jason so much. I thought he was very interesting because he starts off as this star quarterback of Panther football. And what Panther football represents to Dillon, Texas, the small town in which this show takes place, is football is where the town derives their pride from, where the town derives its identity from. Their virtue, their victories are vicariously felt through the identity, the framework of the Dillon Panthers. People in the audience, they're watching them and they're living through them on a monumental level. And Jason Street was the quarterback, the star quarterback of the Panthers. So he was like an Adonis. He was almost like a Christ-like figure in Friday Night Lights until he tackled somebody the wrong way and ended up paralyzed. And I'm watching it like, wow, wow, this is like the punished quarterback. This is the punished teenage god. And he is just freaking out. And what happens like 2 episodes later, um, his girlfriend Lila Garrity is sleeping with his best friend Tim Riggins. He's just punished over and over and over again until he starts to get some autonomy. So like it's actually almost brilliantly laid out because it's giving him all of these reasons to be mad, to be upset, and I would have been livid. I would have wanted someone's head on a platter. I would have wanted to take that school and that team for everything they were worth for putting me in this fucking chair, for taking my mobility away, which is a large part of my autonomy away, for stripping me of what I got my identity from, which was sports. And then slowly over the season, through the help of Herc, who's his friend that he makes inside the rehabilitation center. He is getting there. He's not getting back to who Jason Street was in the pilot. He's becoming a new Jason Street, a transformation, which I think is actually like a lot more beautiful for Jason Street. He's given the opportunity to take the team, take the coach, take the school to court. And I agree. I think that he should have been taught how to tackle, but he just takes what he needs. He becomes like an assistant coach there. He becomes a lot more autonomous. He becomes a new Jason Street, a new and, in my opinion, improved Jason Street, where he's realizing like maybe it's not like the Lila Garrity that I'm in love with. Maybe this is a huge piece. Like I'm in forward momentum now. This piece of my life is going to take such a huge rewrite on the part of myself. And I think he's fairly more autonomous than he was when he was on his own 2 feet in the pilot. I think that paralyzed Jason Street is remarkably fascinating because he was the punished quarterback who I think may have had the philosophical notion that like football is so important to everybody in this devil town. And it was so important to me, and it still is so important. It's about community. It's about belonging. And I mean, he was challenged because when it made public that his family was intending to sue uh, Panther football for settlement for money, um, he was kind of shunned from the town, and that was like the ultimate punished star of the fucking football team. It was kind of so intense and absolutely beautiful. He started playing quad rugby and just wasn't good enough to make the team. To go to Beijing. Kirk was, his buddy was, but he wasn't. There's a lot of good stuff with Jason Street, and Lila Garrity is my second favorite character. I knew that I would love her a lot when she first showed up, though, because I am a pitiful man thing, and I was like, oh, I like her. No, 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 profound character. She was just like hot. She was just like hot for like 2 episodes, but then she got like really interesting very, very fast. I'm just saying that Minka Kelly is it's extremely cute and very sexy. But this is a great character who also finds her own autonomy, finds it through pain, through the paralysis of Americana itself, like her father Buddy Garrity's infidelities. Her taking that goddamn car and smashing it into his auto dealership, I thought was so poetic and so interesting, right? Because like it's the cheerleading captain, fucking smashing into everything. It's the best cheerleader in the world, just taking a bite out of the American psychology and choking on it. That's incredible. So yeah, Jason Street and Lila Garrity I thought were the most interesting to deal with, especially when Lila Garrity and Tyra kind of become friends near the end, or at least make a truce and interact with each other in a meaningfully positive way. There's a lot of great Lila Garrity material here. I thought Lila Garrity and Tim Riggins had amazing chemistry. I think that they were electric. I'd like to see that relationship explored more. Tim Riggins, one of the most self-hating characters in all of teen drama. Um, what I find most fascinating about Tim and the way that he was written is that he's such an insular character. He's very guarded. I can't tell. I, d- I don't think he's too dumb to articulate himself. I think he knows why he's self hating and why he can't find value in himself. Why he punishes himself so frequently. Like, why when his dad lets him down by stealing a camera from the school, from the team, a very expensive camera, and lying about it, and like letting him down in that sense. He goes and finds punishment. He wants the absolute shit beaten out of him. That he wants the living daylights just blown out of him, just beaten the fuck. Uh, I like to think that he can articulate why he seeks that punishment, but he chooses not to. He doesn't. And I think that he doesn't open up to anybody really for all of this, all season one. Doesn't open up to anybody about his self hatred. And I think that the audience member, and this is the most fascinating thing, I think we would be the last people he would ever open up to. We will never see like true vulnerability from him. Uh, it just wasn't possible in the first season. I know we got 5. I'm sure we're going to see some vulnerable Tim Riggins moments. But what I thought was so interesting about his character was there was so much self-hate there. There was so much pathos and like an extraordinarily felt pity from the audience. Like the audience feels so much sympathy and kind of adores this character. He's very well acted and very well developed character throughout the season. It's just that as an audience member, we would be the last person that he would be open and vulnerable with concerning his depression, which could be clinical. Like he is so sad. And I find him to be a very captivating character. This loser drunk who seems to know his place, his lot in life. And I don't even think that's why he hates himself. But even he, I think, recognizes the importance of Panther football to the community that he lives within. Texas forever, because that's his sad anthem. It's anthemic for Tim Riggins, Texas forever. But what does that mean to a person who hates himself so goddamn much? Like Tim Riggins, what is Texas then? What is this devil town to you then? And why do you think you need to be punished by it perpetually, forever? Why? And those are things that makes you want to watch more and more Friday Night Lights. So great job there. Smash Williams, I think, was an excellent character. I didn't know I would love him so much because he's kind of introduced in an antagonistic way. Like, he's severely narcissistic, and I think that the pilot really makes you warm up to people like Tim Riggins. You know, I think you spend a lot of time with Tim in the pilot. And when Smash is first introduced, his first couple episodes, he is little more than an antagonist to the newly blossoming Tim Riggins storyline with Tyra and Lila and stuff. Um, but Smash ends up becoming really interesting. He starts dating a preacher's daughter, and she kind of challenges his narcissism, not to like vanquish his narcissism because it's there, and maybe it's there for a reason. Maybe you're there to lead Smash, and he is. He's there to bring that sort of narcissism to a place where it truly matters. And then there's a lot of great episodes that concern race relations, and kind of the Texan psychology, even more than the American psychology. So we're focusing even further in here. And I think that Coach Taylor's best moment this season is with Smash when it's after he finds out that Smash after he punishes Smash for using steroids. He goes over to his apartment complex and he and Smash play a fun game of football with the neighborhood kids. I thought that was honestly Coach Taylor's best moment this season. And Smash is a very captivating character, really cool, um, fairly interesting. He got to do quite a few cool things, and his dynamics with the other team members were very cool. His dynamics with the other team members were pretty neat. I like seeing Smash developed. Jesse Plemons as Landry or Landry. They can't seem to decide on what his actual name is. I think it's just Landry. But I swear to God, it was Landry when the show started, or I'm just losing my mind. But he made me laugh so much with his Christian speed metal band. He's so funny. He nailed it. He really nailed it. Cool character, cool kind of outsider character for me. I liked his kind of dynamic, especially with Matt and Tyra. Jesse Plemons did very very well here. Speaking of Tyra, Tyra reminds me of Kim Kelly from Freaks and Geeks. And Kim Kelly from Freaks and Geeks reminds me of my mother. This bad girl from a fucked up family, uh, on her way to nowhere. You know, like an intrinsic tragedy to characters like Tyra, and I really think that was a really good character too. Just really great material there. I loved Matt and Julie together. Not much to talk about there. You see, so it was fun to analyze. Lila, Jason Street, and Tim Riggins because it's fun to analyze them, right? The rest, it's just very standard. extremely typical teen drama stuff, but you don't realize it's typical because of the composition. Like, try to tell me that Matt and Julie are actually interesting. I think they're wonderful together. I think that Amy Teagarden's adorable, and I think they're an extraordinarily electric kind of couple. I like seeing them together, and I like seeing them happy, and like that they're fun characters. But what on earth is different about them compared to the most basic outline of a romance in a teen drama? It might be the most simplistic romance I've ever seen in a teen drama, right? Like, this show is very, very simple. It is not postmodern. It does not challenge the frameworks that it works within. It does not challenge the teen drama. It succumbs to teen drama. It hits every single note, beat, rope, cliche on cue, en masse, and it's extremely formulaic. I would accuse it of being more formulaic than any teen drama we've covered so far. There's always a save the cat moment, where this character has to do something like really good, after doing a bunch of really bad things, or before. I think some before or after, or save the cat moments here. And a save the cat moment is when a character does something that is sympathetic, that makes you like him, him or her, and especially when they occupy like a morally gray space that is Friday Night Lights, that feels a lot more powerful. So even like the worst people, like even Tim Riggins' dad, will still show up at the football game at the very end of the episode, and that's a save the cat moment where you're like, oh, there's no one who is truly bad or truly good. It's a devil town or whatever, and I get the point of that, and I understand that that's the show trying to reach for authenticity, but it's also just surrendering to artifice immediately in Manifest, right? It's so formulaic like this. Like, you see a situation start, and you're like, oh, cool dynamic. In about 25 minutes, the worst possible thing will happen, and it does, right? And then it's almost too easily kind of solved. For better or for worse. You know, different levels of drama being solved, but it mostly is mended by the end of the episode. Mostly, um, but the formula became kind of absurd for me near the end, because near the end I'm like, oh. Tyra and Landry are getting together for maybe a date, like a fun little study sesh. I'm sure that the worst possible things will happen. And a fucking monster tried to rape Lila because Landry's car wouldn't start, so he didn't make it to the diner. Like, of course, that would happen. You know? Of course. The formula got to be a bit too absurd for my liking. This I'm sorry if it offends anybody. Friday Night Lights cannot compete with One Tree Hill. One Tree Hill mops the floor with Friday Night Lights, especially when it comes to formula, especially when it comes to composition, characterization, character development, emotion, psychology, philosophy, all of it. Because there are parts of Friday Night Lights where I'm like, oh God, this is the most soap opera typical fucking thing you can do, but you get to use your composition, your documentary handheld visual style as a safety net for stale ideas, for tired ideas. Friday Night Lights really is not adding anything to the teen drama art form at this point. And that's probably my major gripe with it. Like, I could talk about One Tree Hill or even Pretty Little Liars and Gilmore Girls, Dawson's Creek, and be like, this show's doing an amazing, innovative thing, at least philosophically, and pushing the boundaries and pushing the teen drama genre forward. Friday Night Lights is not. It's really good. I really like it. There's really a lot of potential, but I don't see it actually doing anything that is really massive. I really don't. You take away the composition, and narratively, it is the most typical, cliched, trope-fueled teen drama on the face of the earth. Now we're going to talk about the Coach Taylor and his wife, who they are very funny together. Great chemistry. This show does treat its adults with dignity, but that's not innovative. Plenty of other teen dramas. Gilmore Girls treats its adults with dignity. All right, there's plenty of teen dramas that do. Often it is true that the parents, adult figures, do get sidelined for the teenagers, but that's for a good reason because the teenagers are more hysterical and therefore more interesting to watch in a cinematic form. I like Coach Taylor. I think he's a decent football coach. I like the marriage that he's in. I don't give a fuck mostly though. Like mostly I don't care about their scenes. They're funny in them, so I get something out of them, but I don't care that his wife's pregnant. I don't care about half the shit they do. In fact, I think when we spend too much time with them, we veer into after school special, especially when Coach Taylor is trying to deal with Tim Riggins, but Tim Riggins won't open up, or trying to deal with Smash, and his wife is trying to deal with Tyra, or trying to deal with his daughters, with their daughter's blossoming relationship with Matt Saracen. It becomes after school special territory and a bit too like what do lame, too fucking hokey, honestly, a bit too that might be another problem. Now I'm thinking about it. I think that Friday Night Lights is a show that is directed at families, like entire families. Where something like One Tree Hill, I think, was specifically made for teenagers and maybe people in their 20s. This show, I think, provides so much dignity and power to its adult characters because I think that adults are 50% of their desired audience. And uh, I think a lot of the adults, I don't buy the save the cat bullshit. I think most of the adults are awful. And I think that if you care about your community, then you should have more to be proud of than fucking football, than nostalgia, than a violent power trip. I think you should have more to be powerful for than that. And I get that Coach Taylor is like the new architect, like the hotshot new architect of the hopes and dreams of Dillon, Texas, because he's a coach of the Dillon Panthers. Um, I don't think that there's um, anything really virtuous about being a part of a community and not helping that community achieve anything that actually is impressive, or worth being proud of. Like the adult characters, I think, surrendered to complacency, surrendered to um, self hate in a large way. Maybe Tim Riggins just got a jump start on that. Maybe he can see like my brother is still like his glory days, um, which I'm living within. Like this is the best my life will ever get, and I know it, and I already hate it, kind of thing. I just think the adults have a lot to answer to. That Friday Night Lights, that Peter Berg and Jason Katims didn't force them to. I think the adult characters have a hell of a lot to answer to. Why is this town so fucking shit? Why does America suck so fucking much? I don't like football. Fuck you. Like answer to it. Like why? Why is that the only hopeful thing we have in this goddamn town? You know, we spend every game praying to God, and it's and there's not a single atheist on this whole show. There's not a single character that even questions God, and maybe that's true to Texas, but I don't know. I find that kind of hard to believe, and typically easy for the show. There's nothing that makes you think like, oh, this is a different sort of show for a teen drama than watching a team of football players pray. You know, it means nothing if you don't like investigate what that prayer represents, and never do. It's just the mechanics of ritual. You know, like then God isn't really fully dealt with on the show. It's just a simple part of Dylan life, which is poetic in its own way, and that probably is the point of the show. It's just don't strive for realism. That's what I'm saying. Embrace the cinematic. I want to see even if it seems contrived. It's fucking a show. It's cinema. Everything's contrived when you're working in artifice. I want to see these concepts challenged. I want to see these adults taken to task. You know, I like Friday Night Lights quite a bit. I thought it was very good, very very good. Um, I just don't think it's uh it's masterful at all. It's not. It's not masterful at all. It's not doing anything different. You take the narrative, and the narrative is the most typical fucking young adult novel you've ever read in your life. And it's not saying anything really postmodern or very interesting about these scenarios. It's just talking about cliches. And sometimes it pans out. You investigate the fall of the high school quarterback or the fall of the pretty brunette cheerleader, and sometimes you investigate those things and you come out with really interesting results, like in Friday Night Lights, or the self-hating fullback. You come out to really interesting results. Um, but those seem almost accidental when I'm looking at the overall development and composition, narrative, structural composition of the show. The philosophy of this show is the most simplistic philosophy um, that we've ever engaged with when we've talked about a teen drama. It's the most simplistic philosophy on the face of the earth because it doesn't care enough to develop um, its own confrontational visual grammar and like translate that into the characters themselves. Confronting their own philosophies, which I don't care if these are dumbass, like rural Texas kids. Every kid confronts their own philosophy. And most kids aren't that stupid. Most kids are fairly articulate when it comes to developing your own psychology. They are. They are. And I want Friday Night Lights to do that. So I know that season 2 of Friday Night Lights, unanimously, I've been told that it's bad. It's a season I think that was affected by a writer's strike and possibly a lot of other things. Who fucking knows? Um, I think I might like it because I heard people say the storylines got crazy and stupid, and now I'm like, "Oh, good, good. It's a fucking show. Should be a little crazy and a little stupid. It needs to do something with guts, you know. And I don't mean that this show is like cowardly. I mean something with guts, like don't do paint by numbers teen drama. I like paint by numbers teen drama. I like these cliches, but I also like analyzing things. I can't analyze too much if you're just giving me an investigation of small town America. I don't care to speak politically on that. I don't care to because it's fairly evident. All I would tell you is what happened on the show. There isn't much anything deeper to look at. We can talk about rhyming imagery. We can talk about how the scripts are pretty clever sometimes. When it comes to its rhyming themes. Um, Different places where different characters are at on their arc that seem to rhyme at the perfect time and they kind of intersect, and it's pretty damn cool. We can talk about that, but I want to talk about analysis, man. I want to talk about form and what the show is really doing for the teen drama. And Friday Night Lights, so far in season 1, it's a good season. It's not doing anything. And also from what I've read, season 1 of Friday Night Lights is widely considered to be the best season. And Friday Night Lights at its best, it's just a little bit better than One Tree Hill at its worst, because at least One Tree Hill was interesting always. Even even at its most embarrassing, it was still philosophically astute. There's not much here for me to chew on. I really like the show. I really like the show, and I can't wait to come back. I'm developing a fucking accent watching this show. These goddamn Texan drawls, these fucking Texans, it's contagious. Nestles in your brain, and you start dropping all the G's. Like, why would you want to say talking? Like, fucking loser. If you can say talking, like a goddamn alpha man. I really enjoyed the season. I'm just man. I just get really frustrated when I engage with media and I go to do these analysis videos and I just end up kind of repeating and at the best reframing what happened rather than analyze, interpret, deconstruct what happened. Uh, which is kind of what I did in this analysis. Like my reading of Lila and Jason and Tim, it's not anything that isn't explicit in the show itself. Like it's there. It's extremely straightforward and easy to pick up on. It's literally what happened. And all I'm doing here is kind of repeating what happened because the show goes as deep as its depth provides. There's no deeper level. And I like going to a deeper level that's kind of implied by the show. This show has no deep waters for me. This show is not very deep. But it wants you to think that it is. And that's why the composition is both brilliant and a hindrance, because it's actually not deep. And once you get past the composition, you realize just how shallow a lot of Friday Night Lights is. But hey, I will see you at season 2. Hopefully, I didn't frustrate any big Friday Night Lights fans out there. I love you all, and I really like this show, so I can't wait to see more of it. We're doing a test right now. This is a test of the microphone. I'm sick of having bad audio. It'll still probably be bad. That's the best we're gonna get. Friday Night Lights season 2. Um, oh boy, what what an experiment, right? What a season. Um, It's a 15 episode season. It was originally supposed to be 22, so it was cut short by 7 episodes because of the writer's strike. And I think a couple other issues were impacting the season in negative ways. And wow, wow, this season is quite different. And I'm gonna feel like a jerk because if you watched my first season analysis, I criticized the show because I thought it was trying like way too hard to be real, to offer an aura of realism. I thought it was trying way too hard through its composition, and it kind of just reminded me how artificial everything about it truly is. So I'm like, okay, well, embrace the cinematic, embrace the fact that you're a television show. Do something like a little bit wild, and I'm gonna feel like a jerk because season 2 definitely did that. Went to some really wild places. Um, I should have also included like the writing still has to be good. The writing still has to be good. The writing was really, really bad in season 2. And obviously I think that's impacted by the not only the writer's strike, but I think there were like new writers in the room. I know that Peter Berg and Jason Katims were still around. Peter Berg is even in the final episode himself. So like the showrunners and like the primary creatives behind the show, the auteurs were still there. They don't get off scot free here. It's just my God, where to start? Let's start at the show's. I mean, I'm largest mistake, which is making Landry your most adorable character, played remarkably well, still consistently by Jesse Plemons. Making Landry a murderer, that's fine to me. Okay, I think it's stupid and crazy, but you could pull it off. All right, I am a Pretty Little Liars alum. Okay, I'm a veteran. I'm well versed in crazy teen drama. I am a One Tree Hill ride or die kind of guy. But so you could have pulled off this murder. It's fine. But my biggest gripe with it is that, yeah, they chose their most adorable character to do this to. And I'm like, there's so many other things you could have done with Landry, especially with Landry and Tyra. There's so many other things you could have done with them that were probably a bit more interesting. But fine, you chose murder. Let's go with murder. Landry murders apparently a serial rapist, the person who sexually assaulted Tyra in the first season. He shows back up and Landry beats him to death with a fucking pipe. Like it's just like what the fuck. And the thing that like doesn't work, right? Because I was right about my primary criticism is the show's composition, is its documentary handheld thing that makes everything feel like immediate and a lot more intense, and also um provides the show with the realism that I think it so desperately longs to cultivate. That that's what the composition does for the show. And then when you add like cinematic stuff to it, when you add kind of outrageous and more sensationalist things to that compositional style, man, it comes off as even more artificial or more outrageous than it would have if the show was shot a bit more conventionally. I actually just think that the compositional style of the show is not good. I think it's just a hindrance to it overall. I don't think that that compositional style can kind of carry a show unless it's like a straight up mockumentary style comedy show. I don't think it can carry a show over seasons and seasons, especially 22 or 15 episode long arcs, because over time you start to develop a sense of nausea to it because you're starting to see the artifice within it. I was seeing the artifice within it in the first season when they weren't doing anything kind of crazy, and now they are doing crazy things, which makes the composition seem even more funny. But so like the murder really doesn't work. My biggest gripe, my biggest complaint with the murder, with the Landry thing, is just how insular it is, just how self-contained it is to Tyra and Landry's father. Like, why the fuck doesn't Matt like ever say anything to Landry about this murder? Why doesn't Tim Riggins ever say anything to Tyra about the murder of her rapist? How the whole town doesn't seem to know that Landry killed a serial rapist. No one talks about it, and he's a football player. Don't you think that would be like a little scandalous? Just a little bit. No one talks about it. Coach Taylor and Tammy, they say nothing. No one says anything about this situation. And then they try to bury it, right? Like try to bury it around like episode like 7 or 8 or something. And like they're not pressing charges. Still, that would have been a huge fucking story. No one cares. No one cares. So it's like it's one of the worst handled arcs, plot lines that I've ever seen, ever, ever. And the composition doesn't add anything to it. It hurts it in a lot of ways, and I don't think it provides any kind of interesting characterization or development for any of the players involved. Uh, Tyra and Landry could have just become closer. And you could have done like goofy, almost like John Hughes-esque things with Landry. I mean, I think that's the strength of Landry. You didn't have to make him a fucking murderer. And then yeah, Matt Saracen doesn't say a fucking word to Landry about this. I will say, I think that the show had one kind of meta moment, one slightly postmodern moment at the very last episode where like Landry and Matt are sitting on the couch together, finally catching up, you know? And they're talking like, man, I just didn't know Tara was your type. Do you like my Matt Saracen impression? There's just a lot of stammering involved. And then Landry responds to it with, "Yeah, well, I didn't know that like hot, I didn't know that hot Latina maids were your type, but here we are." They were kind of pointing out how fucking stupid and weird the plot lines had become. I feel it was a little like a wink and a nod from the writers of like, "Yeah, we know what's going on, and we're gonna fix it next season." Because I did read that in season 3, they almost retcon all of this shit. Season 2, I think is going to be a very interesting experiment in teen drama when I'm looking back, when I get to the final episode of Friday Night Lights and I look back and I can go, that was an interesting experiment. But I hear, yeah, that they kind of do a massive like rewrite of a lot of the major plot points and kind of act like season 2 didn't happen in a large way. That's at least what I've heard. I haven't seen it for myself, but I'm excited to. But yeah, that's the worst um, storyline I think we've ever covered. It's just a pitiful failure in every way but the performances. Jesse Plemons still nails it. Still nails it. He's so good. I kind of do like him and Tyra together, but uh, compelling me to care through the most sensationalist idea ever just doesn't work. At least, like in One Tree Hill, like all those car crashes and a lot of the ultra violence was really metaphorical. right? And there's nothing metaphorical about Landry murdering a serial rapist. There's nothing metaphorical about it. So like it fails in every conceivable way. And that's a pretty large part of this season. So a pretty large part of it failed. I do think my favorite characters are still Jason and Tim and Lila. I think those are still my three favorite characters. And I think that they did Jason a disservice this season. He did a few interesting things. I love this examination of the three of them, right? The fall of the high school quarterback, the fall of the head cheerleader, the fall of the high school fullback. You know, I like these investigations. I like seeing, especially Jason Street. I love seeing the football star kind of dissected, turned inside out, deconstructed in a very, very, very large way, in the most intense way possible. I mean, he's obviously paralyzed. Uh, he- and he's so hyper emotional. I do really like the couple episodes where he kind of drags Riggins down to Mexico to do like he was attempting to do a botched surgery, get some like some whale toxins injected into his spine, and he was probably going to have a really bad. He was probably going to die doing it or something like that. It was just a terrible idea. And Lila goes down there too, and they have some really cool moments together. The three of them. What an interesting dynamic! I would watch an entire show just based on those three characters. There's a lot of power from those three. That scene where Lila starts dancing and kissing the two of them reminded me a little bit of like Y Tu Mama Tambien, the Alfonso Cuarón film starring Maribel Verdú, Gael Bernal Garcia, and Diego Luna. Um, but better, actually. There's like a lot more intensity here. And there's a lot more energy, sexual energy, because I pick up on a lot of great chemistry between Taylor Kitsch and Minka Kelly. So much great chemistry. And when she's dancing with the two of them, like I said, it's the ruined versions of archetypes dancing with each other. It's the ruined quarterback, the ruined fullback, and the ruined head cheerleader, beautifully dancing and kissing and happy for a brief moment. And I thought those moments with those kinds of characters, with those characters specifically, were precious. I uh, I also just thought that like the rest of Jason Street's stuff was underwhelming, to say the least. I think the very final scene of this season was him begging the redheaded waitress that he had a one night stand with to keep his baby, and he was doing some kind of I mean, I understand why he was doing a lot of cheap shit, like personifying the baby, being like, "You come on, keep it. There's a little person in there with fingers and like a wee wee," like trying to say that trying to personify this thing and get into her head. But you understand why, because now I guess he's like really invested in his idea of legacy or like having some sort of normalcy and wants to really be a father. Um, and that's fine. That's fine. I wish we kind of went in a different direction with Jason, but I can see this being fruitful in the end if they follow this particular storyline. If this is one of the ones that they drop, then honestly, I don't mind that at all either. But I do see some potential for some interesting things to develop, and then for me to analyze as the seasons progress with Jason. I think Jason is fascinating. Tim Riggins, I think, comes out of this season the most unscathed. And that might come down to Taylor Kitsch's pitch perfect performance and magnetic screen presence. He's great. Even when he's hanging out with a fucking meth dealing psychopath, like he's still doing fine. Even when it gets sensationalist and crazy and outrageous and super cinematic and dumb, when Tim Riggins is involved, it's okay because there's this kind of there's a certain kind of magic with Taylor Kitsch. He's remarkable on the show, and he's remarkable to watch. The self-hating fullback, I think I understand a bit more. I think that one of the most fruitful dynamics this season was when we really investigated Coach Taylor and his interactions, his relationship, his um, his dynamic with Tim Riggins. That was really cool. When Tim Riggins went to live with Coach Taylor and his family, and uh, Coach Taylor mistakenly thought that Tim Riggins was taking advantage of his daughter Julie, who he got drunk. But that's not what happened at all. Tim Riggins was kind of protecting her from a creepy guy who was for like getting a creepy guy who was almost forcing himself on her when she was drunk. He was at least being incredibly creepy and a bit aggressive. So he scared the shit out of that guy and then took Julie home. But when he was putting her on the bed, it looked like it was a bad situation. And Julie is the most annoying character in the world this season. What the fuck happened? All right, I still think Amy T. Garden's really cool, but what a fucking annoying character this season. That just relentlessly annoying. But when she finally told her dad, I think we get one of the best moments in the entire show so far. I think the best moments in season one had a lot of great moments. The best moment of season two is Jason, Lila, and Tim dancing, and then Lila kissing both of them on their way back from Mexico. That is the best moment of season two. I think it's saying a lot of powerful things, like in its essence about archetypes, damaged archetypes, about how like I keep saying the fall of the high school quarterback, but the fall of the high school quarterback is honestly the birth of the authentic man, the birth of a life outside of football and all that fun stuff. All that interesting stuff. And like the other two are experiencing it too to a greater degree. I'm going to get into that a bit more with Riggins right now. The other best moment of the season is when Coach Taylor, after Julie tells him the truth about what happened, he goes to see Tim and he's like, "You're honorable. Like, do you know what that is? Like, you're an honorable. You did an honorable thing. You're an honorable person. And thank you. Thank you so much." And you see Tim smile, and it's a real smile. It's honorable. And I spent a lot of the first season kind of like I loved Tim Riggins, thought he was great. And I thought he was one of the most self-hating characters in all of teen drama. And one of his catchphrases, like his motto, the thing he lives his life by is Texas forever. That's what he lives his life by, Texas forever. And I'm like, why forever? Why Texas forever? You seem to hate yourself so much. Why are you so loyal to this place? And it's honor. He, and it made that character so much more complex because now I'm like, I understand it. Tim Riggins, he comes across as self-hating, but that's because he feels like he fails all the time. What he's actually trying to do is be an honorable man in a world that seems to lack all forms of honor. Tim Riggins is trying to be an honorable man in a universe where honor is measured in the grossest possible ways, and true honor doesn't really seem to be recognized. And then when Coach Taylor actually recognized like what Tim actually tries to do is be honorable, and he saw it as honorable, or maybe Tim didn't even know he was looking for something honorable, right? Maybe he didn't even know that. And then when Coach Taylor says you're honorable, Tim realizes like exactly what he wants out of life. He wants to be an honorable man. Um, and I thought that was so poetic and interesting, especially in the very final episode where he's kind of on that Christian talk show. Someone calls in asking, like, what do you think about the Smash Williams situation? And Tim, I think, deliberately uses the words, Smash Williams is an honorable person. Like that is now at the forefront of his mind. Honor is at the forefront of his mind. And I think he's a little less self-hating this season because he's coming a little bit closer to honor. And I think when he thinks of Texas, he thinks of honor. And I think that Tim Riggins is a very honorable kid. And I think he's so self-hating because honor is so elusive. And I think that's the tragedy of Tim Riggins, and that's one of the most poetic things that Friday Night Lights has going for it. Lila Garrity, fall of the high school cheerleader, and I kind of loved her as this born again Christian. One of my criticisms of the first season was that it was using these elements of realism in a way that I thought was exploitative or at least shallow because like they pray before every game, but they never investigate Jesus. They never investigate Christianity, God, or religion as actual things. And in season two, they do. They do, and they do that through Lila Garrity, who I think is desperately also trying to find honor, just like Tim Riggins. And that's why I do think Tim and Lila are a great match for each other. There's an electric chemistry between the two of them. I mean, my God, the two of them couldn't get more attractive. I just feel like they're two characters desperately looking for honor, but they don't have like um the vocabulary to find it or the experience to know where to go looking for it. And they're trying to find it in ways that make sense to them. Tim Riggins is trying to find honor. Well, I think in the first season he was trying to find honor through football because that's the only thing that fucking Dylan Texas seems to care about or seems to recognize as important. So he tries to find honor through that. And season two, he's finding other ways to find honor. And I think it is becoming more successful than he's devoted primarily to just football. Lila Garrity, I think, was finding honor through a kind of depiction of perfection, especially when Jason Street, before his accident and after his accident, uh, that perfection was tarnished, that image of it, and then she ended up sleeping with Tim Riggins in the first season and kind of having to step away from that relationship in a large way, and I think she felt dishonored, you know, and her Christian arc, I think, is like pretty interesting because we do investigate Christianity as a theme, and I think we're investigating it as a repressive theme as well. And there's this line that Tim says to her when Tim goes in to kiss her early on in the season. He's like, "I feel closer to God when I'm with you." I don't think Tim is lying. Lila's like, "You think that line would work on me?" I don't really think Tim's lying. I really don't. I think that the salvation that Lila is looking for, the salvation that a lot of young kids are looking for, and they end up like in youth groups, or they end up devoting a lot of their time to church. I think the salvation that they're looking for can be found in the authenticity of love, of young love, of young, naive, and dumb love. I think that that's true salvation, and I think they're both looking for honor, to be honored and to honor another. I think that's what they're looking for. It's not necessarily I feel closer to God when I'm with you. I feel honorable when I'm with you. And I think Lila is seeing that honor and is feeling honored. And I think it's like that. I think that's really good. I think that's really good. I think those three are okay. Um, Jason, the writing wasn't there for a lot of his arcs this season, but it was for the Mexico stuff, and I think that Tim and Lila got away okay. And I did see little fucking Logan from Gilmore Girls show up as competition for Tim Riggins as this uber Christian radio host and like little youth pastor or whatever the fuck he is. He's a decent actor. I just think he exclusively plays roles that are kind of poorly written. Oh my God. And that scene in the final episode of the season where Lila is like, "Are we alone now?" at his parents' house or something, and they start kissing and gets hot and heavy. And then Chris, that's who Matt Cesarci is playing Chris, and he's like, I don't want to mess this up. We gotta stop now. I don't care how Christian you are. I would burn in hell for Lila Garrity. I'd burn in hell for Minka Kelly. Come on, that's worth it. That's worth eternal damnation. She definitely is worth that. Oh my God, Minka Kelly is so sexy. She's fun. She's really fun. I think the other characters sucked this season. I think Matt Saracen's whole Latina nurse, live-in nurse slash maid or whatever. That's just there's nothing metaphorical there. They tried to force it with like everybody leaves me, everybody leaves me. That was so forced and contrived, and there was no real passion there. And also, I feel like that was so out of character. I don't think that Matt Saracen's the kind of person to have this abandonment complex. I really don't. I don't think that's there. It might be there like with his actual dad, but it's not there with like everybody. Like he doesn't actually think that Coach Taylor abandoned him to go to TMU. Like there's no fucking way he thinks that. That's just bad writing. I thought the Smash shit was so dumb. My God, just a modern lynching, like being punished for for being black and defending your sister. But it does come back to honor. Like there is coherence here. He's defending his sister's honor and he's defending his own honor, right? And like who can blame him? It's just like fucking. I think everyone but Tim Riggins basically is fucking really weak about it, kind of spineless. At least Tim Riggins, like he's an honorable person, and I think it's okay to hit a man sometimes, and I would have done worse. He's the only one. Like, why is Coach Taylor not being like, let's raising hell or something? It's fucking. Oh my god, it's so. Smash just had a very frustrating arc this season because I feel like so many characters were acting out of character, especially about Smash. Well, really about everybody. Everybody was just acting out of character. No one was interacting with arcs in the way that they should, in a way that seemed genuine to their character. Except for Tim Riggins, except for Lila Garrity, and maybe Jason Street. That's it. Everyone else were acting like different characters, not only from the first season, but from like episode by episode. Matt Saracen would be a different person. Episode by episode, people would interact with Smash differently. There was no true character consistency, but there is a theme, and that theme is honor. And the theme is really a tragedy of honor, which is, I guess, that it exists, but you are kind of punished for attaining it, or even seeking it out, or demonstrating that you understand what it is in the first place. Friday Night Lights season two. I know it's an experiment, and I know that it's largely viewed, even as by the most diehard Friday Night Lights fans, it's viewed as a failed experiment, and it is mostly a failure. It is, but there are interesting things here, and I do appreciate that the show that Jason Katims and Peter Berg, at the very least, understood that the show had to do something a bit more cinematic, a bit more outrageous. Um, in order to justify itself in a postmodern way, in a metaphorical way. I just think that the writing wasn't there; it was lacking. Things weren't really thought out, or the writing was ultimately lazy, and not a lot of philosophical engagement. Like, it needed to do something a bit more cinematic or sensational to justify its philosophy, but it never really. I don't think it really found its philosophy until the end of season two. Like, I think we went through all of season one without a philosophy. A philosophy is not what the show is. Like, the show is about small town America. That's not philosophy. It's hardly even politics. And I think in season two, they did finally find their philosophy, and that's about honor, what it means to be honorable, which I think is a great philosophy and a great theme that I hope we continue to explore. It's just that, hmm, the more sensationalist things they did really didn't do a lot to further the exploration and examination of honor. And that's because I don't think that they had that figured out until in the moment as they were writing season two. I think Friday Night Lights is a good show. There's a lot of good within it. It's just it's kind of frustrating. It is. It's kind of a frustrating show. But I'm looking forward to season three. So and I think I've talked about season two enough, and I think that I said quite a few interesting things about the season. There's a lot of interesting things here, and I hope that at this point, the writers and the showrunner have been able to identify exactly what is psychologically, philosophically, romantically penetrating about the show. And now I hope that seasons three through five, I hope we devote our time exclusively to those things. But I guess we'll see. Thank you for watching. I'm your cult boyfriend. I'm fucking sick. I don't know what it is, but nothing will stop me or prevent me I'm talking about Friday Night Lights, season three, which is really fascinating because it's a retcon, it's a rewrite, it's a rebuild. It's taking season two and throwing it out the window. All of the insanity that was what season two ended up being. Just throwing it all away. You don't have to watch season two anymore. It's a totally skippable thing now. And maybe the writers just assume that you have your own headcanon. Sometimes they pick and choose what they want to keep, but so much of what happened in season two is so much of a non-issue. Like everything from season two is a non-issue now, so it really doesn't matter. The murder with Landry and Tyra does not matter. Lila Garrity's born again religious Christian fanaticism doesn't matter. So much of it does not matter. And I think that's fascinating for a show to do. A show to go, okay, we fucked up. We fucked up. Let's do some course correction. Let's fix this because there's something good and there's something full of heart. So let's fix it. Speaking of Landry and Tyra, they kind of focused more on those John Hughes-esque qualities that Landry possesses that are the most adorable to explore, and they kind of grow closer together through exploring those more adorable kind of romantic themes, and it's definitely preferable. I definitely prefer them growing closer together in a kind of more organic, sort of John Hughes like way than by something contrived and stupid and sensationalist like a murder. So whatever, good on you, Landry and Tyra. I do have some gripes with this season. I don't know whether to talk about it now or save it for later. Maybe I'll talk about it a little bit now. Uh, College is really important in season three. A lot of our characters are thinking about the future and puts a lot of emphasis on college. My concern or my criticism is the fact that Tim Riggins and Tyra Collette are even considered for college. Tim Riggins never went to school. Tyra Collette has been, for as long as I've known her on this show, on a fast train to absolutely nowhere. The show wants to be really realistic, as evidenced by its nearly documentary style visual composition. It wants to provide an aura of realism, but then stuff like this, like giving everybody a happy ending, putting so much emphasis on college when I know towns like Dillon don't give a fuck about higher education, and characters like Tim Riggins and Tyra Collette certainly don't give a fuck about their futures. Trust me, I was an outsider kid. I, it's just so fucking weird how much everybody wanted to go to college, like out of nowhere. I mean, at least Tim, until the very end, was like, "No, I don't want to go. I don't want to go." And then his brother's like, "Come on," kind of gave him a bit of a Ben Affleck and Good Will Hunting speech of like, "No, no, you go there. I'm gonna kick your ass. You gotta do better by our kids or something." That's another criticism, I guess. I think this show is mostly made for parents or for entire families, and um, I wish there was more spotlight on teenage philosophies because I think that the Tim Riggins and Tyra Collette true teenage philosophy, college is uninvolved in that. It's pretty damn it's about going nowhere very fast. It always has been. So I don't understand why you're sacrificing this realism for some sort of happy ending or something. I mean, I doubt that it's even going to be a happy ending. There has to be some tragedy, or else it's not Friday Night Lights. What do I think is the best thing about season three? I don't think it's a great season. I think it's better than season two, not as good as season one. Yeah, it's a step up from season two in a lot of different ways. The writing is a lot more intact. The themes are very coherent. Um, it's full throated. It is an extremely articulate season. And where season two was talking about honor, and I thought season two did okay when talking about honor. Season three is really talking about, and this is why college is such an important thing. It's talking about autonomy and about freedom, you know? And that's where we get to the most interesting part of season three. The best part is this new kid, JD McCoy, who The most interesting thing about JD McCoy is that he is unbelievably uninteresting. His extremely rich and wealthy father has so much pressure on JD McCoy to play football that JD has become a non-entity. Like he's hardly even a presence. And the coach can see this kind of thing, and so can the other players. And I think that Coach Taylor kind of nudges Tim Riggins in the direction of, hey, make him feel part of this team. And that's where the best parts are. The best parts of season three is watching Tim Riggins try to help JD McCoy, this kid, like open up and find freedom. And it's also beautiful because those two characters are at opposite spectrums. Tim Riggins probably had way too much freedom in life. He is the most existentially free character on the entire show. He is content to just do nothing but maybe fix a car and drink a lot of beer. He has so much existentialist freedom, so much personal autonomy that he's been able to define himself completely and totally, and find some honor along the way, which is huge for a teen character. Tim Riggins is an excellent character. JD McCoy, I think the most cruel thing you can do to a teenager is to kill their freedom. JD McCoy is not allowed to define himself. He has no personal autonomy. He has no personal freedom. He has no personality. And you see glimpses of it sometimes, and it's like, man, this father who abuses him both physically and mentally, causes him a lot of duress psychologically. He did commit a pretty large murder of the soul. The kid has no personality, and the personality that comes out near the end of the season is really aggressive and shitty and mean. But of course it would be. Of course it would be, given the terrible circumstances of JD McCoy's existence, which is a non-existence. I thought that the scenes with Tim Riggins and JD McCoy were fascinating. And it had that tragedy that I like so much within Friday Night Lights because you know this can't go well. In fact, I thought the worst things were going to happen to JD McCoy. I thought JD McCoy was going to be pushed to self-harm. Um, in the most intense possible ways. And so I really found those scenes with Tim Riggins and JD McCoy to be just so powerful. Someone who is absolutely free and someone who is in absolute captivity, kind of interacting with each other. And then you can kind of view it as concepts, conceptually interacting with each other, the concept of freedom and the concept of captivity through the teenage lens, interacting with each other, and both masculine as well. That's super important to their dynamic. Tim Riggins and JD McCoy, that dynamic was fascinating. Oh my God, I wish I got a little bit more of it, but also I think I got just about enough. Oh my God, it was so intense. It was so crazy. A lot of power there. Lila Garrity, I wish that they didn't completely get rid of her Christian fanaticism because I was kind of into it because I was like Tim Riggins is running around looking for honor and he punishes himself so much because honor is so elusive and difficult to attain and you're punished for even seeking it out in Dillon, Texas, right? And that's why he says Texas forever, because for him, Texas means honor. It means some sort of not antiquated but eternal notion of American honor that he really wants to not only live up to but hold, but have. He wants to honor Texas in a large way and be honored by it in return. And I felt that Lila Garrity, it was saying a lot of things about religion in season two, about how the salvation that kids are looking for, and they end up finding it in repressive things like religion, for instance. With Lila, what they're really looking for is honor, is to be honored. And she felt so dishonored by the events of the first season with her father's unfaithfulness and by her own unfaithfulness to Jason Street. The salvation she's looking for is really honor and it made Tim and Lila have these kind of parallel wants. And I wish you didn't get rid of that entirely because that was something from season two that I think worked fairly well. In season three, she's less interesting in my opinion, but she is still one of my favorite characters. Uh, we really complete the deconstruction of the fall of the high school cheerleader and the birth of the genuine woman. And it's really, really nice being around the kind of electric chemistry that Taylor Kitsch and Minka Kelly had. It's wonderful spending time with them. Both Smash and Jason were kind of demoted to guest players, kind of wrapping up their arc. Smash gets into college ball, and Jason goes off to New York City to become a sports agent. We deal with some metaphorical stuff with Jason. He's kind of in his arc in this season, he's trying to flip Buddy Garrity's house and remodel it. And of course, that's a pretty hyper literal metaphor for what Jason wants to do with his own life. Um, to fix it up and make something really successful out of it. A nest egg, something that for his new family. I think more interestingly, that's saying a lot about the show itself. The show itself is flip trying to flip the show. The show itself is trying to remodel itself after the catastrophe that was season two. And through this kind of experiment with revision, the show does that pretty successfully. But I think that the show recognizes that there's no going back now, right? Because Tim says to Jason when they leave when they leave each other, Tim leaves Jason in New York to start his own life. He says Texas forever, right? Knowing that that is no longer true. Knowing that that is no longer true. And I think that's the show itself saying there are a lot of possibilities now, and we aren't undefeated anymore. We had a big loss, and that loss was called season two. But thank God we still have people like Tim Riggins to anchor us firmly to Friday Night Lights pure, like to the purity of Friday Night Lights. Tim Riggins, Taylor Kitsch is still out of control. He's still great on this show, and the character is still very strong and very recognizable. So, yeah, it's really good stuff. It sucks seeing Jason Street go because he was one of my favorite characters. I think I liked Jason, Tim, and Lila the most, and it sucks seeing him go, but all right. I guess he didn't have any more ideas for him, which is tragic. I wish we got something better. Smash too, because like that it allow with them leaving, it allows us to spend more time with people like Matt and Julie, who while I like them and like them together, I don't think they're interesting at all. They're the most uninteresting teen couple we've ever covered. They're not saying anything subversive, anything challenging, anything philosophical, or anything remotely complicated or complex. It's the most paint by numbers, naive display of high school romance that I've ever seen. I do like them together. I do think it's cute, but I find it kind of insulting that the show's ideation of this kind of young love is so naive that they're both completely stupid. You know, I don't think Matt Saracen is as stupid as the show wants me to think, and I also still don't buy the whole abandonment complex that he has. I still don't buy it completely. Matt, I like Matt, but Matt didn't recover from season two. I think he was fucked up in season two, and we haven't recovered that yet. Same with Julie. Julie was made to be unbearable in season two. In season three, it's still lingering. That annoyance is still there. She's still an aggravating character. Even though I like Amy Teagarden and I like Zach Gilford, I just they're not they're not fitting in well on this show for me. They look good together, but I wish they were given like a little bit more philosophy or any philosophy other than we're cute and dumb and naive. Because certainly Tim and Lila are like that's an adult romance. Like that's like a pretty sophisticated romance. Meanwhile, like Tim is the biggest himbo in the world. So if you can do it with Tim the himbo, why can't you do it with Matt the art school kid? Coach Taylor and Tammy were cool. It was fun seeing Coach Taylor's purity that was the Dylan Panthers be overtaken by an outside sinister wealthy force. By the end of the season, Coach Taylor is fired from the head coaching position by JD McCoy's father, an abuser, a user, and an awful human being. And he's going over to East Dillon now, the East Dillon Lions, I believe. And the last scene we see this season is of their rundown, unkempt, dishonored football field. So I'm looking forward to it. Coach Taylor may actually be challenged in some very interesting ways. He was very interestingly challenged in season 3, and I liked seeing Coach Taylor kind of fall. He lost, and JD McCoy's father, this wealthy elite scumbag, won. This abusive scumbag won, who doesn't see football for what Coach Taylor sees football as. How does Coach Taylor see football? As proving grounds, as the way that young men can have a single spotlight over their camaraderie, over their uniqueness, and over their power and masculinity. He kind of views high school football as where you find out what it means to be a man, and you take the lessons you learned from the plays, from actually playing the game, and you kind of incorporate those into your own life, and you become a stronger man on account of it. JD McCoy's father does not view football that way. He views football as something to exploit young people with. He views it as an exploitative game, an exploitative match. Coach Taylor's an honorable man. JD McCoy's father isn't. Yeah. So all in all, it's a it's a very good retcon, a very efficient and effective course correction, and I liked it a lot more than season 2. I really did. I'm looking forward to season 4. Thank you for watching. Well, I thought season 4 of Friday Night Lights was excellent television. I am extremely impressed by a great deal of it. Let's start with Tim Riggins. Tim Riggins has been consistently composed beautifully by the show. Um, a staggeringly uh, brilliant character all throughout. I love the development of his character, and here I think we get the full circle. I love that the first time we see Tim Riggins in season 4, he's in college and he is learning about the hero's journey. The hero's journey in his lit class. And the next scene we see of him, he's throwing his copy of the Odyssey out the window and returning to Dillon, Texas. He's rejecting the narrative. He's rejecting the narrative of the hero's journey, or trying his best to. Heroes aren't born, they're molded. And Tim Riggins is a hero. He ends up turning himself into jail basically to save his brother. Spends this season trying, like he's tried since season 1, to be an honorable man. And I still get some of the self-hating qualities Taylor Kitsch effortlessly brings to this character. I still get those feelings of self-hate. Now I see them in heroic dimensions. What I saw is self-hate or pity. What it really means is Tim Riggins will take the blame. Tim Riggins is saying, I will take the blame. His character, his archetype is saying, I will take the blame for Texas forever. I will take the blame, and he means it. And he takes the blame. The blame for basically every wrongdoing of the narrative. He takes it all. And this has happened like since season 1. He has taken the blame for every dilemma that he's come across. He's taken the blame for it. I find that kind of teenage sacrifice heroic and nearly Messiah-like. This is probably the best example of exploring the condemned teenage Messiah, the Apollo, God, condemned, fall of the high school fullback. It's the best example I've seen. And it's heartbreaking. This is amazing. The character of Tim Riggins, it's been an honest pleasure spending so much time with Tim Riggins. I'm in awe of what they were able to accomplish with that character. And that says a lot about teenage philosophies because I've been critical of the show before. I thought that they weren't giving enough time to teenage philosophies, that they were more concerned with family dynamics, with more adult outlooks on certain things. Um, but not with Tim. Not with Tim. Tim, he's a fucking teenage Jesus of Texas Forever. And I get it. I love it. Bravo. Brilliant, brilliant job. Bravo. Another character who deserves a standing ovation is a new one called Vince Howard. Michael B. Jordan, phenomenal performance on this show. If it weren't for Taylor Kitsch, then Michael B. Jordan, I would be singing his praises as the most electrifying performer on the entire show. He's so good. He is so good here. I loved Vince Howard. I loved his the paradoxes of his character. I loved his teenage philosophy too, and I love that it was still strikingly naive, even though his character was dealing with ultra violence and extreme hardships. He was still a very tender and sensitive character. Michael B. Jordan impressed me so much in this season. It is so good. So this season of Friday Night Lights takes place. Well, it's brilliant. First of all, because gracefully, effortlessly, it has made the Dylan Panthers the villains. The team that we were rooting for the three previous seasons, it turned that on its head. The show's kind of deconstructing itself in a large way and has made the Panthers the villains and given us a new host of underdogs. Underdogs with like true problems as well. Kids without pride, kids without direction, kids without any true direction. Coach Taylor has found himself at the head of the Lions in East Dillon, Texas, and we get to talk about school politics in ways that I thought were interesting that really served this season correctly. Um, in the past, I didn't really vibe with it too much, but here it makes a lot of sense, and it's a tightrope. It's a thin line that shows like these walk. Brought up Michael B. Jordan. He was also incredible on the first season of The Wire. But I have a lot of problems with The Wire, right? I think that The Wire is is impressive, is mostly impressive. But I think there's another huge part of the show that feels like it's a television show about poor people made exclusively for very rich people. Very rich white people, if I'm being honest. Shows that deal with these sorts of subject matters and themes run the risk of coming off as a little white savior or as some sort of maybe like liberal hive mind treatise, you know, on sensitivity. And I find that kind of disingenuous and without passion, but somehow Friday Night Lights season 4, I think it recognizes the thin line it's walking on, and it never makes Eric Taylor into this kind of savior or messiah. Not truly, not really, or at least it's always counterbalanced by something that is a lot more truthful and unexpected coming from the opposite direction. And I like that we're exploring these themes on this show because through the past 3 seasons, it has mostly been white people problems. Like we had Smash, and Smash was a really cool character, but now we're dealing with the truly dispossessed peoples of impoverished Texas communities. And I think that's really good. And I think it's very interesting to put these characters in these situations. I also think it's nice that the show is using its fourth season to explore themes that teen drama as a whole mostly ignores. And this is the only show that can properly explore these kinds of concepts because of something that I've criticized in the past. Now it's all coming together. This is excellent television. This is the best season of Friday Night Lights, without a doubt. even though I don't get the drool over Minka Kelly all the time. She's in one episode. I mean, still, it's the best season of Friday Night Lights by a country mile. I've criticized the composition of the show, but its documentary style approach, its handheld shakiness that makes everything seem intense and immediate and tries to provide the show with an aura of realism. I've criticized that in the past because it made everything else seem sort of artificial. It made it seem like it was trying too hard to be real. But that exact composition is the only reason why season 4 can pull off what it does so well, right? Because if we're handling topics such as class, social, and now racial stratification and disparity and urban crime, I I don't want to see that done within the frameworks of a One Tree Hill or Dawson's Creek. I don't want to see it done in that compositional style. I want to see it treated with an in kind of with a kind of intense dignity, which the composition of Friday Night Lights treats it with. Now the style is coming into full focus for me. Now the style is actually working. It's working very well. And I'm kind of shook. It, great. It's fucking great. Masterful, actually. I now see what so many people have been talking about. Um, I'm actually watching this show because of Mia, who's been on the channel a few times. We talked about Dawson's Creek and One Tree Hill. Um, she told me I had to watch this show, or at least recommended it a lot. And now I see. I wasn't seeing it really too clearly for the first 3 seasons. Now at season 4, I'm like, okay, it's working. This is it. This is what you've been talking about, Mia. It's fucking brilliant. You were right. Yeah, as I said, best girl, Lila Garrity, played by Minka Kelly, my dream girl, is no longer here to interact with. She's in one episode, and we wrap up the fall of the high school cheerleader and the birth of the genuine woman. Um, it was a great episode, actually. She was wonderful in it, and it's great to see Taylor Kitsch and Minka Kelly with their electric chemistry be together once more, because that's a huge thing for teen drama. If a show does not have that electric couple, then it fails. And Friday Night Lights, since day one, had it. Had Taylor Kitsch and Minka Kelly, Tim Riggins and Lila Garrity. It always had that, and that's a crucial component to making a perfect teen drama. And I loved her episode here, and I actually feel like we did get some sort of closure, and I appreciated the how her arc kind of ended. It might be the most realistic ending of an arc that I've seen on the whole show. A show that strives for realism, even at a detriment to itself. Uh, girls, people, they just outgrow. It's outgrow you, outgrow their environment, and they're gone. And you can't be mad at them for that. X is forever. I like that. I like that a lot. Jesse Plemons, of course, is adorable and wonderful in this season. This season even finally complicated Matt and Julie, a relationship that I hadn't really given too much thought because not a lot of thought was put into it. Let's be honest. Until now, now their relationship is more sophisticated and has a lot more dimensions to it. Now I kind of view it as maturity, as that kind of sweet, effete naivete shared between the two of them as things that they have to outgrow, things they have to encounter and cherish, and then leave. And Matt Saracen, the kid who's been abandoned his entire life, abandons everyone he knows. He comes back and he makes it right. And there is a poetry to Matt Saracen. And Julie wasn't awful this season, so everybody wins. Eric Taylor. Tammy, so good this season. I finally enjoyed being around them so much. I finally was really invested in what they were going through because what they were going through, I found virtuous. Both of them. Tammy helping out Becky with options on what to do with her unplanned pregnancy, and also her being kind of in the middle of this socio-political war between East and West Dillon, um, coming at Joe McCoy as the ultimate villain of the series. I think it's wonderful. I also like seeing JD McCoy now and like the little terrible, the terrible little infant he's turned into um, since season three. I loved being around Eric Taylor. I thought what he was doing was virtuous too. And I thought it was virtuous in an honorable way, which isn't showy or messiah-like or just putting a spotlight on himself. I thought from Sean Chandler's performance, I got something really genuine about Coach Taylor's determination to bring pride to a group of extremely poor and disadvantaged youths who had never even heard of that concept before. Connie Britton was great too. This is their best season too. It's the best season of Friday Night Lights. This is really poetic. And I mean the most impressive thing about it is Tim Riggins. It is. And Tim Riggins, while he is involved in the kind of in the East Dillon story, in the socio-political economics, his story is more devoted to poetry, to physical poetry, to rhyming images, rhyming themes. That's what Tim Riggins is devoted to this season, and it is such a careful and deliberate and I'm just gonna say perfect handling of his character arc. The fact that he takes the blame. And it's not just the blame for his brother, it's not just the blame for his family, it's not just the blame like for Becky, the blame for Julie back in season 2, which was the best part of season 2. He takes the blame for so many things, for Jason Street, for everything, for Texas. He's not self-hating. He's just trying to make Texas free again by absorbing all of its pain and its guilt and its bad dreams and accepting whatever punishment awaits him for that nearly divine teenage sacrifice. Fucking brilliant, man. So beautiful. Like, maybe you can tell, but yeah, I'm shaking. Got me. Finally got me. So impressed. Because this is a huge chance that it's taking. The show took a huge chance. And it's lovely when you see those Hail Marys being thrown and the pass actually completes. And this is probably the most invested I've been in the football itself as well. And the metaphorical value of it all. The very last game, which was Lions versus Panthers, I was so involved in that. I didn't really care about state before, but I cared about this. I cared about this one. Season 4 of Friday Night Lights proved there's more than one way to skin a cat. And this season, it stirred my soul. It's great, man. It's so fucking beautiful and gorgeous. Yeah, I can see why this show is so beloved. I can see why this show is held in such high regard and esteem because it deserves it. I'm floored. Shock and awe. Shock and awe. Like, I loved all of the new additions. Um, Luke, I thought was great. And Becky too. And I love seeing Alicia Witt, one of my all-time crushes. I love seeing her running around here. She's great as Becky's mother. Luke was awesome. What an interesting kid. Heart goes out to that kind of behavior, that kind of attitude, that kind of relentless fighter spirit in someone who has probably just been beaten down his entire life. With a character like Luke, it's easy to pluck on my heartstrings. I'm like, oh, let something go right for this little fucking farm boy. Matt Lauria gave a very impressive performance. There's nothing else to say apart from I loved this season. I absolutely loved it.
I was living in a devil town. I didn't know it was a devil town. Oh Lord, it really brings me down about the devil town. All my friends were vampires. I didn't know they were vampires. Turns out I was a vampire myself in the devil town. I was living in a devil town, and I didn't know it was a devil town. Oh Lord, it really brings me down about the devil town.
And just like that, we are done with Friday Night Lights. This is it, the final season analysis from your cult boyfriend. I I thought it was okay. I thought it was a very, very satisfying conclusion to Friday Night Lights. There were a lot of good moments, um, and there was a decent amount of power. I think the show's at its best in the fourth season, and I wasn't expecting the show to be just as brilliant as it was in the fourth season. The fourth season was just so many things were going right for it. And the Tim Riggins arc had finally completed. Like everything was coming to cathartic completion for me in season four. And then season one is very good as well. I think those are the two best seasons of Friday Night Lights. Season five is okay. It's okay. Speaking of Tim Riggins, I think that the most powerful thing about the show is his absence, because he's only in a handful of episodes here near the very end of the season, the final few episodes, and his absence is felt. His absence is deafening. It's it's all consuming. It's so bizarre watching this show without Taylor Kitsch, without Tim Riggins. It is so weird. Um, but it's a penalty, right? Because like little teenage Jesus, he went and paid for the sins of teen shows and teen drama and Dylan, Texas, and honor and masculinity and all this fucking bullshit. He went and paid the price for it, paid the penalty for it, took the blame, and we felt it. We felt its effect. He really was taken from us. He really was gone, and when he came back, he wasn't the same. What happens to teenage Jesus when he's resurrected and sees that Dylan is still just as fucking depressing and full of nobodies going nowhere as it was before? His sacrifice seemed to have meant nothing. Everyone's in the same position, the same exact position. I really appreciated the scenes that Tim Riggins had with Tyra. And I loved when we left him building the frameworks of his house on that piece of land. And the last words he says to us on the whole show, the last words he speaks are Texas forever. The fuck yeah, as it should be, Texas forever. The episode before the season finale is called Texas whatever, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. I like that. That speaks to me. Texas forever. It's his home. No, he'll always be there. In all honesty, Tim Riggins, his arc completed in season four, but I do appreciate spending more time with him in season five, and he's still very sophisticated in season five. It's just his arc for me truly completed in season four, and it was a beautiful arc. Uh, if nothing else, and I do think Friday Night Lights is a very good show. But the most important thing about it to me, the thing that dazzled me the most was the character Tim Riggins, was teenage Jesus himself. Um, I thought that Tim Riggins was brilliant, and I think right now that Tim Riggins is easily one of the 10 best characters to ever appear on a teen show or teen drama, one of the 10 best fictional teenage characters of all time. I am floored, like I said, completely dazzled by Tim Riggins, by Taylor Kitsch's performance, which was basically pitch perfect. Like there's really not a flaw within that performance, and the writing was incredible. Uh, the show was at its most inspired, and I think at its most innovative, and I think at its most philosophically penetrating and erotic when um, when it's exploring Tim Riggins. Tim Riggins. Tim Riggins is the physical poetry of Friday Night Lights. It's all Tim Riggins. And even his absence in most of season five, it's devastatingly felt. You miss him. And then when he comes back, he's not really there because of readjusting after prison. Like he's not really there anymore. You see glimpses of Tim Riggins, the Tim he used to know, but that's changed forever. Maturity can kill that. A lot of kids reach maturity through punishment and through sacrifice, and that kills a large part of the teenage character. Even teenage Jesus Christ himself can't recover from that. But the most important thing about Friday Night Lights is certainly Tim Riggins, one of the most phenomenal and one of the most interesting characters that I've had the pleasure to analyze with you. So, Tim Riggins forever. Tim Riggins forever. Friday Night Lights is cool. I think it did a lot. I think it did a lot um, for teen shows in a way that I don't like really care about though. Because I view teen dramas and teen shows. I view Dawson's Creek and Veronica Mars, The OC and Gossip Girl and Gilmore Girls as perfect television, as good as pop culture art gets. It's my favorite stuff on the planet. I view it as pristine, but I understand that most people don't. And by the way, that sounds like their problem and not our problem. But granted, most people don't view teen dramas or shows the way that I do, or maybe the way that you do as well. We view them um, as works of art, as very important philosophical statements uh, about art, society, culture, and sex. Most people don't. And TV, people who watch TV have a really weird kind of association with the TV that they consume. Um, I mean, if I hear another time someone say that TV is bad for you, I'm just going to swallow a bullet because that is so dumb and so stupid. But there's this thing called prestige TV, prestige TV that that a lot of people seem to like to arbitrarily use to describe shows that they deem better for some stupid, vague reason. Mostly HBO shows occupy prestige TV. Like they kind of have a monopoly on that. So like The Sopranos and the Deadwood and fucking The Wire, like that. Those kinds of shows would be seen as prestige television. But you get some for the other networks as well, like Mad Men or like Breaking Bad, uh, like Game of Thrones. Those are the shows that are prestige television. And Prestige to me is just as stupid as elevated horror. Like, both don't exist. Both don't exist. Like, you want to feel better about like watching television or something, you need to justify it to yourself that you're not actually watching television, you're watching something else. No, man, like you're watching television. Normies like to be really elitist about what kinds of shows they deem worthy. Somehow television is still living in film's shadow, which is so fucking stupid and small-minded to me. Television has surpassed film, and it surpassed it a long time ago. In fact, it surpassed it um, around the age of Dawson's Creek and the OC. That's when television um, surpassed film, and yet television is still deemed better if it's more cinematic. Television has very unique and specific powers that cinema can't touch, and cinema shouldn't want to touch it, just like television shouldn't want to be like cinema, because both are uniquely powerful and they're separate mediums. All right, they're separate mediums. There's different structures involved, there's different ideas involved, there's different goals involved with making them. you know you're going to tell me that ballet and stand-up comedy are the same fucking art form because they both take place on a stage? No, it's hardly even both theater, and they both don't have to take place in a theater. There's a lot more. This is such a other topic. This is such another discussion. I'm sorry. The primary point of what I'm saying right now to you is that Friday Night Lights did a lot to legitimize teen shows and teen dramas in the eyes of prestige television. Friday Night Lights, I think, deliberately went out of its way to be held in the same conversation as a Sopranos, as The Wire, as Breaking Bad, as these more seriously discussed and examined shows. And I think that means a lot to a certain kind of person. It doesn't really mean anything to me, right? Because because I love teen drama and teen shows anyway. But Friday Night Lights legitimized it in a very huge way, and it legitimized it by way of its composition that I have criticized, that I think only truly worked beautifully in season 4. That's when everything was working just right. Everything was working just right. But the show likes to have an aura of realism. It likes to be a little topical. It likes to explore politics, albeit, in my opinion, on a pretty surface level. All right. It likes to explore romance and eroticism. I think it explores teenage romances in ways that are sometimes too naive, unless we're talking about Tim Riggins. He's the only one who gets to be sophisticated with his romances. And even then, it's by the limitations of Tim Riggins as a character, it can only be so sophisticated, but it's still brilliant, not taking anything away from that. If it sounds like I'm being backhanded, it's because I think I am being backhanded because I think Friday Night Lights is a great show. I don't think it's better than One Tree Hill. I don't think it's better than Dawson's Creek, and I don't think it's better than Gilmore Girls. I don't think it's better than Gossip Girl at all. Gossip Girl is still the best teen drama I've ever watched in my life. All right, but Friday Night Lights is talked about differently, and I understand why it's talked about differently. And it did a lot of hard work to be talked about differently. I just hate the term prestige television, and you see that applied to Friday Night Lights a lot. And I think in a couple ways that's a good thing. That is a good thing. If it took Friday Night Lights to legitimize teen drama and teen shows and for most older people, then I mean, thank God for it in the end. Clear eyes, full hearts, can't lose. Thank God for it. Friday Night Lights, I think, is the prestige TV teen drama. Um, and I think it's very good, but I do think that the show is constantly trying to be seen as prestige television, like very serious or very real. And I think that holds it back in a lot of different places, and it held it back in the final season as well. brought up One Tree Hill. I still stand by the criticism I provided in my very first analysis video of Friday Night Lights, where I said One Tree Hill embraced the outrageous, embraced more sensationalist, even cinematic qualities. It embraced its own artifice, whereas Friday Night Lights tried to stubbornly pretend that the artifice wasn't there, that there was nothing artificial about it, tried to pretend it was almost documentary, which I found a little silly and held back certain characters from achieving like I think more truly defined dimensions. But that same style is what catapulted it into the level that most people call prestige television. People like to think that they're watching something a lot more smart or a lot more serious than they actually are. I think One Tree Hill tackles a lot more interesting themes in a lot more interesting ways, and does so through camp, through ultra-violence, through tenderness, through eroticism, and mostly through philosophy. I love One Tree Hill. One Tree Hill is still far and away a much better show than Friday Night Lights. Friday Night Lights has its own unique powers. And those powers are kind of in its tenderness. I do wish it was a bit more complicated in the end. I do wish the show had a little bit more to say at its very end. Molder of men. Can we talk about what that actually means, though? Can we talk about your failures, Eric Taylor? Can we talk about those? I think the only truly sophisticated arc on the whole show, like now that I can step back and view it as a whole, the only completely from beginning to end sophisticated arc is Tim Riggins. That's it. That's it. And it's worth watching this show again and again just for Tim Riggins. There's so much power there and there's so much philosophy there. It's amazing. The other ones, like even Matt and Julie get engaged this season, I still think they're just as naive and shallow and not fleshed out as they were in the first season. In season four, they did some interesting things, but that was it. That's the only time they ever did. Season four was really just a very special season. Like Michael B. Jordan is still killing it. I loved Journey Smollett. I loved her so much. Oh my God, I'm developing a crush on her. Jess was a really cool character this season. Really cool. She was exciting, and I do wish we got a little bit more time with her and Coach Taylor because near the end of the series, those were my favorite moments. Her trying to shadow Coach Taylor to become a coach. I wanted to know what it meant, for a young girl to want to be a molder of men and what exactly that meant. But the show didn't at all investigate those ideas. And I would be doing 90% of the work if I were to analyze it right now. But hey, why not? Why the fuck not? I'll do the heavy lifting for the show. Uh, she's taking care of all of her little brothers, all these little kids running around. I mean, like that's her thing. And she really coached just as much as Taylor did. Helped Vince become an honorable person, you know. And she loves those little fucking rugrats that she takes care of. She is a molder of men, and she understands the value of molding honorable men. And she loves the game of football and understands football the way that Coach Taylor does, and might be like the only person who does understand football the way that Coach Taylor does. And it's about providing the future with honorable men. There you go. If only the show could have like maybe thought about this more. I feel like I thought about it more than the show did, but whatever. Loved her to death. My God, so cute. Mindy was a surprise favorite this season. The only time I came close to crying were some of her moments with Becky. Uh, the actress is so good. So good. Some of her moments, like her expressions, like when she finds out that Becky had an abortion in the previous season, she just does this lean back expression and I can't mimic it because it was so pure and so full of pathos that I almost cried. There are a couple moments like that with her and Becky when she's standing up for Becky and starting to like Becky and take care of Becky and foster her in a large way. I was so impressed by Mindy. What a great character. Billy annoyed the fuck out of me by the end of the season. I do not like Billy. Billy annoys me now. But Mindy, she is so sweet and so cool and she feels real. Friday Night Lights does feel lived in, you know, does feel like a lived in universe. Mindy feels real. Buddy Garrity has always felt real. Vince's mom, so beautiful. She feels real. His dad feels real. This place does feel real. So much of it feels like it's it's a truly inhabited world. And I think it's easy for a lot of people to relate to the idea of living in a devil town with a bunch of vampire friends, and then you realize you're a vampire too, and how that can really get you down. I'm sure, I mean, I know I relate to it. I mean, I think that that is like a pretty good example of Anywhere America. I just think that Anywhere America is kind of limiting. Um, Teen drama is pretty expansive. You can cover a lot within it, you know. I don't necessarily think that television should strive to be as real as Friday Night Lights did. Um, and I also don't think that Friday Night Lights is as real as it likes to pretend that it is. There is a lot of realism to it, but the artifice is still there. Um, I don't think that television should strive for the kind of realism that Friday Night Lights goes for, because there are always contradictions um, that get in the way of the poetics that you're trying to demonstrate. So I know a lot of people love this show. I think it's very good. I do not love the show. I love the fourth season, and I really, really like the first season. I don't love this show, but I view it as a pioneer within the art form that I love most, teen drama. It's a pioneer, and make no mistake about that. It's one of the most important teen shows ever made. It legitimized the art form. No one can say teen drama is just for kids anymore. But here's the thing, I never thought it was just for kids. And even if it was just for kids, who's to say that kids shouldn't have great art or don't already have great art, right? So it legitimized it. I just don't care if it's viewed as legitimate because I think it's perfect. Doesn't matter if other people think it's perfect. I think it's perfect. The art form as a whole. But a lot of people are really stubborn. And I don't know what they do when they watch teen shows. People who like hate teen shows or view Night Lights differently than they do other teen shows. Is it because when they think back on their own teenage years, there's like a sense of embarrassment about it, and they don't want to engage with that? You know, or do they have like that ridiculous notion of insecurity that most fading generations do? Yeah, I see it in as a millennial. I see it within millennials now, directed towards Gen Z. Of they don't want to watch teen shows with kids in them because they just think that all kids are fucking stupid now. All teenagers are fucking uh, nimrods, idiots. Like, is that why? There's a lot of reasons why. I think when you tap into teenage feelings that are always within us, that are still there forever, they're eternal. When you tap into teenage feelings within grown people, you're tapping something very sensitive, and it makes a lot of people insecure and a lot of people feel embarrassed. And with Friday Night Lights, you can approach those kinds of sensitive teenage feelings and grown people in ways that are more delicate. And that makes the show incredibly valuable because in that sense, in that way, in the way that Friday Night Lights approaches the teen drama, um, people who wouldn't ordinarily um, engage with teenage philosophies can now engage with teenage philosophies and not even know that they're truly doing it. I mean, and I think that teen shows and teen dramas are so important and so sacred that I want everyone to experience a great teenage drama, a great teen television show. And Friday Night Lights, I think, allowed a lot of different people who wouldn't normally watch these kinds of shows to feel the kind of feelings that I'm here all the time gushing over with verbal ecstasy. It lets a lot of different people feel what I feel about a lot of different shows. So Friday Night Lights is very important. I don't think the show's making any truly grand statements in its final season. Nothing that it hasn't already said quite a few different times. Uh, but it's still enjoyable, and there are still quite a few decent moments. Um, and I think it was a very satisfactory way. I was satisfied with the ending. Thought they ended it very satisfyingly. I do like this show, and I do see why. Why? It's so important. Its importance is undeniable. Very good television. Thank you for watching me. I've really enjoyed doing this journey through Dillon, Texas. It's been a blast. It's been really, really, really fun. Friday Night Lights is essential. Texas forever.